It was exactly 5:32 a.m. when it happened. There I was, standing in my backyard, shovel in one hand, half-eaten apple in the other, halfway through feeding my cows, when a shrill voice shattered the peace of morning. "You're under citizen's arrest for chicken terrorism." I looked up, blinking through the fog of early dawn, and there she stood, Vivian Marks. Glittery pink robe clinging to her like tinsel on a drunk Christmas tree, a Starbucks mug gripped like a grenade, and her phone aimed at me like a courtroom camera. She was filming, of course, already mid-performance. And the only other sound? My old rooster, Colonel Clucksworth, crowing his little heart out from the coop. I didn't say a word. I just stood there chewing my apple while she yelled across the fence. Then she whipped out her phone and called 911, not realizing she was calling the department I worked for. See, what she didn't know, what made this entire thing sparkle with delicious irony, was that I'm the sheriff. Sheriff Mason Briggs, fourth generation to work this land, raised right here in Harlan County, population 2,000 and some change. By the time I pulled up to the front gate in my cruiser, badge polished and hat straight, she was still shrieking, "Arrest this man!" And me. To me. I stepped out of the vehicle and adjusted my Stetson while she blinked at the badge on my chest, then up at my face. You could practically hear the dial-up sound in her brain as the realization crawled in. She hesitated, stammered, then scoffed. "This is a conflict of interest." I asked what the emergency was, already knowing dispatch had flagged the call as a rooster making threatening noises. According to her, Colonel Clucksworth had been targeting her specifically. She said he crowed with intent. Vocal threats, she claimed. I pointed to the coop, where Clucksworth was already back asleep. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "that rooster's older than TikTok. I'm amazed he wakes up at all, let alone plans psychological warfare." She turned redder than a ripe tomato, mumbled something about lawsuits and media exposure, then stormed off to her porch where she resumed her usual routine, pacing and glaring. And that's when I decided enough was enough. Vivian had only been in town 3 months. She moved from the city, bought the newly renovated farmhouse at the edge of Ridge Hollow Road, and immediately declared herself a one-woman HOA. Problem was, Ridge Hollow didn't technically have one. But Vivian? Vivian found a loophole. She claimed that because the last HOA president moved to Arizona and didn't appoint a successor, she was interim authority. No vote, no consent, just her clipboard, her whistle, and a wild interpretation of a rulebook she printed from the internet. The neighborhood had tolerated her antics so far. Complaints about the scent of fertilizer. Demands to limit tractor hours. A nasty letter to Mrs. Dobbins for daring to hang wind chimes tuned to an unpleasant key. She'd even dropped off a citation in my mailbox about visual disharmony due to the color of my barn doors. But the rooster incident crossed a line. A 911 call? On me? That morning, I filed her complaint into the system. Officially. Complete with body cam footage, photographs of the chicken coop, and a written summary concluding that no laws had been broken and no action needed to be taken. Then I added a little note to the case file, caller unaware of subject's occupation as county sheriff. Believed rooster engaged in targeted aggression. No evidence of poultry conspiracy found. That afternoon, I watched her from my front porch through my binoculars, the same ones she used to spy on half the town. She was out again, clipboard in hand, pacing like a general inspecting a battlefield. Measuring tape. Laser pointer. She even had the nerve to step up to my fence line and measure the width of my driveway. And the next day, she replaced my official government-issued mailbox with one labeled HOA Complaint Dropbox Karen Division in glittering gold font. Now, tampering with a federal mailbox is a felony. And I could have booked her right then and there. But no. I wasn't just going to sweat this gnat away. I was going to document everything. Slowly. Carefully. And bury her in her own madness. I installed new security cameras. Night vision. Motion detection. Within 48 hours, I caught her sneaking up to the coop at 4:50 a.m. with a flashlight trying to provoke Clucksworth into crowing. I caught her stealing one of my scarecrows, too, which showed up on her lawn wearing a floppy pink sun hat. That tape? Priceless. 2 days later, I woke up to find a stack of citations taped to my barn. Violation 001, non-uniform scarecrow aesthetics. Violation 004, excessive tractor placement at dawn. Violation 007, unauthorized windmill rotation. I don't even have a windmill. Vivian had taken her delusions to a new level. She was trying to build a paper trail, get enough violations to push for forced removal, compliance, or some kind of property devaluation angle. She didn't know I was building a case of my own. Then Dale showed up. Dale Whitaker, my neighbor, retired postal worker, brews his own beer, and minds his own damn business until Vivian fined him for unsanctioned lawn flamingo congregation. Apparently, his plastic birds disturbed the visual symmetry of the neighborhood. We drank beers on the porch while reading each other's pink notices. We laughed so hard Gus, Dale's old Labrador, barked in protest. But then Dale told me something serious. The other folks on the HOA board, the ones Vivian claimed were supporting her, they weren't. They were afraid. She bullied them into silence, claimed emergency authority. I started digging. Found the old HOA charter, barely legible, last updated in 2006. But one clause stood clear. President must be elected by majority vote. No interim authority permitted without written consent by 2/3 of board. Vivian had no consent, no vote, nothing but a loud mouth and a clipboard. So I gathered statements, talked to neighbors, collected photos of her trespassing, of her ripping out mailboxes, a copy of her fake farm property optimization guidelines, which included gems like livestock noise curfew, 8 p.m., and scarecrow design must comply with traditional Americana aesthetic. Then I called a special meeting. She showed up first, standing at the head of the table like a dictator. Gave a speech about saving the neighborhood from rural decay. Claimed I was leading a farm-based insurgency against modern values. When she finished, I stood, calmly placed my binder on the table, and presented everything. The trespassing footage, the fake citations, the altered mailbox, a letter from the previous HOA president stating clearly, Vivian Marks was never appointed. She harassed my wife into a nervous breakdown. Then I asked who here voted for Vivian Marks as president. No hands went up. Not one. Dale stood and made a motion to remove her immediately. Unanimous. She screamed, threatened lawsuits, stormed out, dropped a binder labeled Phase 2, Chicken Control Protocol, on the ground. It was mostly hand-drawn roosters with devil horns and excess over barns. I should have been relieved, but I knew her type. She wasn't done. Next came a letter legal-looking, taped to my fence. Vivian was suing me for emotional distress. Claimed Clucksworth's crowing caused her urban alarm PTSD. Said my rooster's aggressive tone gave her anxiety attacks. She even submitted an auditory disturbance log with entries like 5:37 a.m. Crowing, volume high, tone, defiant. 6:04 a.m. Wing flap, threat display. Her lawyer called my office. I answered. He sounded maybe 19. Nervous. You're being sued for psychological warfare via livestock? I'm also the sheriff, I said. You want to keep talking? They didn't. But Vivian kept going. She printed flyers. Taped them around town. Bright yellow with a photo of me mid-sneeze from the chili cook-off and the words, "Is this man a danger to our community?" I laughed. Then I hosted Farm Day. 30 families came. Kids petted goats. Dale brought homebrew. Clucksworth, the rooster, became a celebrity. Vivian showed up in a power suit with a megaphone. Declared the event a biohazard and called 911. Claimed she was being held hostage by a rogue sheriff and his paltry militia. The dispatcher called me directly. You good? Yeah, I said. Just another day. Eventually, she was escorted off the property. Then came the final act, court. She wore a neck brace and sunglasses. Limped like she'd just survived a war. Accused me of weaponizing the countryside. Submitted blurry rooster videos and medical notes citing sound-triggered stress responses. I countered with footage of her shining flashlights into the coop. A vet report confirming Clucksworth was 11 years old and mostly deaf. Even included a video of me playing rooster sounds on a Bluetooth speaker, one of which I noted was from a YouTube video titled Country Farm Ambience. The judge didn't even blink. Case dismissed. And just for fun, we filed a countersuit, harassment, trespassing, destruction of property. The judge nodded. Now we're getting somewhere. Vivian melted down. Claimed the town was conspiring. Screamed that Buckeye the rooster, she never got his name right, was plotting against her. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Moved out. Her house was rented out to a punk band called the Angry Scarecrows. Their first single? Crowbreaker. Life returned to normal. Kids laughed. Neighbors relaxed. Clucksworth crowed like he always had. And every time he did, I smiled. Because in the end, Vivian didn't just lose a lawsuit. She lost to a rooster. And the town would never let her forget it.